Hmm? Ah!
Dedicated to the show, The Walking Dead.
Hey, Zedheads, welcome to the podcast. I'm Jason.
And I'm Lucy.
And I'm Derek.
And this is the Walking Dead cast, episode 404. The end is nigh, sort of, but not really.
Kind of.
We're here to talk about the recent big Walking Dead news. If you don't know what I'm talking about, stay tuned and you will know. And of course, you heard a third voice there. That's Derek. Welcome back to the podcast, Derek. Love to have you here.
Thanks so much. Delighted to be back. It's only been like 6 episodes since I was here.
Yeah, I just felt like with this Walking Dead news, I don't know why, but I'm like, we got to have Derek on to talk about this. So I'm glad you were able to do it.
Delighted to be here. Really good to be invited as usual.
Always good to have Derek.
Yeah. So this episode's made possible by Patreon supporters like Lauren Bronsall, who've pledged their support at patreon.com/Jason and Karen. So thanks to Lauren and everyone else who's pledging. I don't think I'd be able to keep going without you guys. So thank you so much. I actually have a new announcement related to Patreon. They're offering annual memberships now. So you can pledge at any level and get all the perks at that level for a year. Like the call-in shows that we do every month, the Jason and Karen show, the private Facebook group, depending on what level you pledge at. There's a 10% discount if you do it annually. So that's a little over a month for free if you do that. And existing listeners can switch over to that if they want to. And as you'll hear us talk about on this episode, Walking Dead proper has about 2 years left. The plan is for them to end in 2022. So if you get that annual membership, that's a way to sort of go on the ride with us for the remaining couple of years. And then again, that's patreon.com/Jason and Karen. But let's get on with the show.
Obvious threat to untold numbers of citizens.
The people it kills get up and kill.
Are they slow-moving, Chief?
Yeah, they're dead. They're all messed up.
This is a Walking Dead cast news update.
So it's pretty much all news today. I have a couple of minor things before we get to the big major pieces of news. So first, on Sunday, September 27th, coming up, AMC's airing a Walking Dead preview special with Chris Hardwick catching everyone up on where we are in the Walking Dead universe right now. I presume that means just sort of a catch up with the Walking Dead proper, plus maybe some stuff about this upcoming spin-off World Beyond and some Fear stuff, since that's about to come back too. And then that special episode will be followed by an airing of, I read season 10 episode 14, Look at the Flowers. I don't know why they wouldn't. Maybe they're doing 14 that night and then the next week 15 and then 16 after that. So anyway, that's coming out.
That might make sense.
Or I don't
Maybe,
know.
or just
sure.
Carol's greatest hits.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good one. I like that one.
It was. Mm-hmm.
Second, AMC and Amazon's free ad-supported streaming service IMDb TV has a new upcoming channel called The Walking Dead Universe Experience. That channel is going to have, it says select full episodes of The Walking Dead. So I don't know, maybe not the full series. Fear the Walking Dead, Ride with Norman Reedus, Friday Night In with the Morgans, and other related programming along with, quote, never before seen behind the scenes footage, bonus content, original digital series, cast interviews, and fan favorite episodes. So I thought you guys might be interested to see that. It's free. It's available on Amazon's Fire TV or a free channel in the Prime Video app. And it's also, you can go to the IMDb website, or I guess you can just even do it on the IMDb app across all your devices. So free Walking Dead content on IMDb TV coming up.
Very cool.
That's fun.
That's about it. Thanks, everybody. Just kidding.
Nothing else to talk about.
So if you don't want any spoilers about potential exits of characters or any endings of series or anything like that, you should probably just skip ahead to the next episode of this podcast. But we're going to go into the big news. So here's the AMC press release. I'm going to read most of it. AMC announced today, which was September 9th, that its groundbreaking series, The Walking Dead, which made history as the highest rated series in the history of cable television and has given life to a vibrant and expanding content universe, will end with an expanded 2-year 11th season that will span 24 episodes. With the previously announced 6 extra season 10 episodes scheduled for early next year, there are 30 remaining episodes of the flagship series that will run through late 2022. I guess it's 31 because we haven't yet seen what was going to be the finale. As the Walking Dead universe continues to expand, the original series will be followed by a spin-off focused on Daryl Dixon and Carol Pelletier, which will premiere in 2023 and be run by current Walking Dead showrunner Angela Kang. AMC is also working with Scott Gimple, the chief content officer, to develop a new Tales of the Walking Dead series, an episodic anthology with individual episodes or arcs of episodes focusing on new or existing characters, backstories, or other standalone experiences. The company working closely with Gimple is also developing a number of other new and innovative projects grounded in the Walking Dead universe. Melissa McBride said, "Of course, I've always enjoyed working so closely with Norman throughout these many seasons and playing Carol, and as a viewer of the show, I've also long been intrigued with Daryl and Carol, and by what so early on between them even then felt somehow bound. Their shared history is long, and each his own personal fight to survive even longer. The more obvious aspect of what has kept them close and loyal. But there's also a rather mysterious aspect to their fondness for one another that I enjoy, and their playfulness when their world permits. I'm very curious. Angela has a way of shaking things up in great and unexpected ways. She's like a kid playing with the dimmer switch. I'm very excited." Norman Reedus said, I feel incredibly honored to be a part of The Walking Dead. The show changed my life and career, and everyone involved has truly been a family for me over the last decade. I'm thankful for AMC's love and support, and know there's so much more story to tell and so much more to bring the best fans in the world. Daryl's relationship with Carol has always been my favorite relationship on the show. Sorry, Rick. I love the way these characters interact and relate to each other on so many levels, and can't wait to see where their ride goes from here. Let's see. The Walking Dead premiered on Halloween night in 2010 as the #1 cable series launch of all time, later surpassed by other AMC series, Fear the Walking Dead, Better Call Saul, and Into the Badlands, and is the most watched series in cable history. It was also the first cable series to become the #1 show in all of television, including broadcast, a rank it held for 5 consecutive years. In its current 10th season, The Walking Dead remains the #1 series on basic cable for the 11th consecutive year. All the top 73 cable entertainment telecasts for the past decade have been airings of The Walking Dead. So there you go.
What's the state of play with Rick Grimes movies?
They did not mention anything about the Rick Grimes movies.
That's right.
Which is sort of saying something maybe, or at least it's notable that they didn't mention it.
Yeah, nothing specific there at all. That was interesting. Yeah, I know that they obviously the broad kind of concept of Scott Gimple doing these spin-off stories could include the Rick Grimes story, but yeah, interesting they didn't even mention it there.
I mean, the first thing I wondered is, they're ending The Walking Dead. Would Andrew Lincoln come in at the end and, just sort of change his mind and come back? And then I thought, maybe, I've heard rumors that the scripts were not approved for the movie and they had to go back to the drawing board or something. Maybe they would just scrap all of that and have Rick come back for the last season.
I'd kind of like that, to be honest.
Me too.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I can kind of, that was my instinct too, Jason, because another part of me wondered, completely talking out my butt here, are movies going to be harder to, say we're in the current pandemic situation that we're all in for another year at least, are movies going to be harder to produce than TV? I mean, I know they face similar challenges, but is TV like a safer bet for studios because you can do it episodically and it's sort of more like you can drip it out over longer periods of time, whereas movies are like big commitments. If something goes down and we're all put back into isolation again, it could completely throw the money down the toilet.
I mean, they're filming the Batman right now, and Robert Pattinson came down with COVID, and so they're in full production, and yeah, it costs a lot of money every day, so they're just trying to film everything they can that doesn't include him, and also some scenes with Batman, but with a stand-in. So it's a risk, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's doubly unfair, because Robert Pattinson already died of Spanish flu in Twilight. Spoiler for Twilight there. So our thoughts
But
and
the
prayers
benefit
are
with Batman
you.
is that he always disappears at the end of every scene, right? So
Yeah.
so they'll have loads of time with other characters filming their scenes
Just
without
go,
him.
where'd he go?
Where'd he
Where'd he go? He was right here.
You just hear vague coughing from off screen, like, you're like, oh no. Okay, well, my speculation then is that they're folding Rick back into it. I think the fact they didn't mention the films is really telling.
Yeah,
That's
maybe they don't even know
interesting
for
idea.
sure yet either.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, when I talked to Angela Kang, I think she said they were already pretty far into season 11, though. So you would think they'd have a plan.
But then if
for
season
that.
11's being bumper, like if it's... Although we were speaking about it being bumper, what's the longest? Is it 16 or 18 episodes is the longest we've had a Walking Dead season before?
16.
16, yeah. I mean...
So
it's
this
adding
one's gonna
basically
be
a season and a
22.
half.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And they're going, so they said it would end by late 2023. So I suspect that the plan is to have the first half play out over 2020, the end of next year, 2021, and early 2022, and then have the second half play out at the end of 2022. That's what I meant.
Yeah,
Did I say
roughly
2023? I
like
meant 2022. So it's supposed to end up at the end of 2022. Yeah.
So kind of like 2 12-episode
Yeah.
seasons almost, but all called season 11, because we still don't know what's happening with the extra 6 episodes for next season, how that can possibly fit into a show that was supposed to finish with one more episode, and how they're going to call that part of season 10, like how that works. You know, was there a definitive end at the end of season 10, or sort of the next episode with a big cliffhanger, and they've moved that cliffhanger to after the next 6 episodes or something? Is that the way they've done it?
I would guess they just continue the story on, and it will seem a little bit like an addendum, but you know, who knows? I mean, I don't know. But I also want to mention too, I think even though Lucy, you and I both just said we hope that Rick Grimes will be back on the show, and you predict maybe he will, we can't count on that. So we just have to know.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Who knows? You know, we just don't know.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Absolutely, but there's a really weird distinction that we have to make as Walking Dead fans, and I'm still a big fan of the show, and I know you guys love what Angela Kang has done. It's a really big distinction that you have to make, that people who stopped watching when Rick Grimes left, and you go, but it's great now, this show is awesome, and you have to make this distinction that it's not because Andrew Lincoln left, it's because the show just got better under Angela Kang. So,
Yeah.
so it's kind of weird to want Lincoln to come back because the show is great now. I'd love to see Andrew Lincoln on this show the way it is right now. But it's not because he left that it got better.
I mean, I totally agree with you. Although I will say, I think him leaving gave more room for some other kinds of stories that was probably good for the show. I don't think that's the main reason why it's better, but I think it is sort of an interesting facet now.
Yeah, I agree.
You know?
I think we spoke about it before that a lot of the other characters it's felt much more like an ensemble show than it ever did while Andrew Lincoln was there, really.
Yes.
So.
But I would welcome him to come back for the end of it, though. Still,
I note that they didn't mention if there's going to be a Luke spin-off, because I would watch that.
They didn't say there wouldn't.
Well, if anyone's listening, Scott, Angela, you'd have an audience of me and maybe Jason and Derek too.
I'd be there. I hear he goes to Europe and hangs around with a guy that does magic.
In like the 40s and stuff, right?
You're gonna get to see one more episode with Luke.
Yeah, same. I have a suspicion.
I think so.
Although this anthology, I don't necessarily want to skip to that, because I do want to talk more about the ending, but it is interesting they mention that, you know, we could have backstories of existing characters. So any character we could see a Shane episode, you know.
Yeah, well, there were so many, like, you know, they've had some good runs with fairly big name actress. So like I'm thinking of the guy that played Eastman. That could potentially be an interesting episode. Some of the saviors that we encountered, like those two women who held Carol and Maggie captive. One of them was quite an Alicia something. I can't remember her name, the redheaded actress. Alicia DeWitt, that's the one. I'm just thinking, there's a few people who we could visit and be like...
I want to see Gareth, like a day in the life of Gareth, just operating his cannibal factory.
I imagine it would be...
See Gareth back.
Yeah.
They could do it in like the style of The Office. Just be like a documentary at Terminus.
Exactly. Or they could show the origin that they talked about with them. I don't know. That would be interesting.
Yeah. I think that's what this allows, really, doesn't it? It allows all of that creativity, all the creative thinking that you have when you're not telling this linear story every week that has to tie into the previous week's episode. So there is some exciting ideas in there, and definitely they can pull off some really interesting things, especially if they're not tied to this idea of doing, this episode needs to be something that can run on for years, which is effectively what regular TV is.
They could go around the world and show Paris or, big cities, or they could show, they've shied away from focusing in on people who are like looking for a cure, or like government people. They could show some of that. I mean, I'm pretty intrigued by it. I think the main thing that keeps me from being super duper interested is that I just feel like zombie stories are played out at this point. But I'm still interested. Like I'm curious to see what they'll do with it.
It will be interesting to see how like real life has affected it as well, because I think our expectations of like, not that we've lived through a zombie apocalypse, but we've all now lived through a pandemic, which is something that at the start of The Walking Dead still had this kind of epic cinematic like fantasy thing, whereas now we all know that the start of a pandemic is largely about toilet paper. So I wonder if like the magic, like I know for me, I've really missed the show and I've enjoyed like rewatching it and doing the things we'll be doing for the podcast, but I feel like if I were to watch The Walking Dead from the start again, there would be part of me that's like, I don't know, more cynical or less, it seems depressingly less kind of fantasy based than it used to be. You're like, if the society could crumble,
watch it through.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. So I just wonder if I wonder how much the pandemic has played into this need for studios to plan sustainable revenue and plan an ending. Like I'm quite pleased. I think that it's a long tapering off rather than like wham bam surprise it's finishing next summer. I think that's going to be quite good, and it gives me faith that they're going to maybe do something quite good with it, working with that sort of time frame. I haven't followed that many franchises where like an end has been announced, so I don't really know how I feel about knowing how long it has left. Like we usually know when something's going to have a final season, but yeah.
In my experience, two shows that stand out for me of having done that are Lost, where they knew 3 seasons ahead of time. In the middle of season 3, they knew they were going to go to the end of 6. And Breaking Bad, I forget, maybe it was a season ahead of time, and now Better Call Saul. And in the case of Breaking Bad, I know you guys aren't big fans of that. That's one of my favorite shows, and I think it really, really served the show for them to have an ending to work towards. I mean, that is basically like one long movie anyway, so it was good to have a hard ending that they could really work towards, and they did a phenomenal job of it. Lost, I mean... I just have so many problems with the plotting of that show that it's hard to say for sure. There's so many things to love about it, but the plotting for me wasn't one of them. So I think it was good for the show to have an ending to work towards, though, for sure. And it makes me feel good with The Walking Dead that they know ahead of time so that they can really try to stick the landing with it, rather than get caught with their pants down or something.
One of the things that's been really interesting over the past couple of months, and we spoke about it a bit at the trivia night on Saturday, was some of the podcasts that are coming out from like behind the scenes of classic shows. So there's like a Scrubs rewatch podcast, there's an Office Ladies rewatch one, and there's another one that's like an oral history of The Office. And one of the things that I found most interesting, particularly about the oral history of The Office, is listening to showrunners and actors and crew talking quite openly about some of the mistakes and decisions that were made. For example, in The Office, it was all about when Steve Carell left and whether or not they would keep the show running. And it's interesting to hear them talk honestly with a bit of distance from it about how that impacted the rest of the show. So I'm really interested to know, like, yeah, because when Andrew Lincoln left, that must have been a very similar thing. And in that case, the show actually started to thrive again. Whereas in The Office, they then were like, we're wrapping up next season.
Yeah. It was worth a shot with The Office, but it turned out that maybe they should have ended it when Michael Scott left.
Yeah, it was like fine. It's fine. You know, not the worst, not the best. But yeah, it makes me think a lot about how the show's kind of... Because when did Lincoln leave? Was it 2017?
It's middle of season 9, or the beginning of season 9.
Yeah, it was before I moved to... This is how everyone should measure it. It was before I moved to Canada, which was obviously a key date in everyone's minds.
Of course.
So it's been a while. It's been like 3 years without Rick now, which doesn't feel like that.
Two seasons, really.
Yeah, 2 seasons.
Yeah.
So far. Yeah.
One of our reviews in Apple Podcasts is a 5-star review, but the comment is "Office Ladies is better." That's it.
Oh, that was from me, actually. I was just making my opinion heard.
Well,
Brilliant.
you know, before we get too much more into this, I just want to mention, I've always been saying, you know, I think it would be good for this series to announce an ending, perhaps after season 12, which is kind of what we are getting since it's a 2-year season. And so now that it actually happened, how do I feel? Well, I feel good about it. Like, I think it's the right thing. I also am like, oh my God, the show is ending. It's The Walking Dead, you know? It's like, it's a big deal for all of us. And, you know, as cheesy as it might sound for a TV show to be important, I think it's important. And, you know, we've invested a lot in these characters and in this community that we have through the podcast and other venues and, you know, groups that you may be in or friends that you have around it. So, so it's a bittersweet kind of a thing. And I guess, I mean, there's a part of me that does kind of wish they would just end it and not have anything else. But on the other hand, it is kind of nice that they're going to have some other things too. So I'm sort of two minds on that. I guess it's less an anxious feeling than it would be if there wasn't going to be any Walking Dead stuff after that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like the comparison with the comic book of the kind of ripping the Band-Aid off that was done where this is the last issue. Sugar. I didn't get down here in time to buy it kind of thing. You know, it's a very different situation, but you're absolutely right. The cushioning that's there with your favorite characters go on. And we have a series here, which will also bring back possibly all of the other characters that may not be in the spin-off. So, you know, don't worry.
Yeah.
It's all right. So the main show may be ending, but just means this group might not be together, basically. So, I'm exactly the same as yourself, Jason. I'm kind of happy that it's getting an end, but I completely understand. Gimple said a few years ago that this show could go on for another 20 years, and I think I also understand that. I always felt with the comics that that was never going to end either. So, so I'm kind of happy that they have something to work towards from a creative standpoint. It's a much better place to be on a TV show to know your show's ending at a certain point, so you can write towards it. That can only make it better when you've got creative people behind the scenes. But it is a sad day to hear the announcement that it's going away. It's been such a big part of all of our lives for 10 years, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's worth just noting that, this is a big deal.
I think I'm kind of in the same boat as both of you. Like, all of us have been kind of saying it for the longest time that, you know, we think there should be an ending. I'm comforted that it's not being pulled away from us suddenly. But it is really, it's just a lot to think about, I think. And this idea that we're getting all these different things that are quite, you know, they've told us a few things, but I'm still not entirely clear. Do you know what I mean? They've given themselves a little bit of room to have a little bit of creative discretion about the things that they do. I think it will be a good thing for the show. And I think it's interesting that it's going to be a couple of years of kind of winding down. I do think that part of that is buying themselves a bit of time for production delays. I'm here for it. I think it's good, but it is sad. It's a strange kind of sadness where you're like, oh, this era is going to come to an end. The only thing I can think of that's similar is when the 7th Harry Potter book was released and everyone was like, oh no, It's the end of childhood. But then we had the films, and then it was like, oh no, the films have ended. And then it's like, oh no, now we have a place. So like, it does go on. There is an afterlife. Yeah. It's just that weird feeling of abandonment at the start.
Yeah. I mean, I've had some really emotional moments when shows have ended. When my favorite show as a kid, Happy Days, ended. It was pretty sad. And when Cheers ended, and when Lost even, that really felt like a breakup for me. If it was today, there would be 7 Lost spinoffs and we wouldn't have to worry about it. But they
well, I remember getting up at 3 a.m. to watch the finale of Lost to make sure I watched it sort of live, So, so
I was bawling my head off.
Yeah, me too.
That show.
Me too.
I don't know. I'm most cagey about the Carol and Daryl spin-off.
Yeah.
That's the bit that I'm really like, do we need that?
What? It's
I'll
funny
still watch it.
Like right now, I feel like Walking Dead is a Carol and Daryl spinoff.
Yeah.
If you had like watched for the first few seasons and dropped off, and then you just came back to see what was going on in season 10, it would be like Walking Dead, Cole and Daryl and Carol right now. Who are these other people?
I wonder if, because like a lot of people are saying, oh, well, that's a spoiler because we know they live, and yeah, fair.
Yeah.
But
Unless
also,
they're
I wonder
zombies.
if they're. Well, I'm like, A, I would watch that. B, let's just go a bit crazy and have like the Great Zombie Baking Show and just have the two of them be hosts. I would also watch that. I mean, they should be coming to me for ideas. I've got hundreds of ideas. I'll throw them at you, Angela and Scott. But I wonder,
is that baking zombies or
it's both
zombies that
zombies
cook,
baking
or...
zombies?
It depends on the signature challenge of the week, Derek. It's not prescriptive. You just got to use your flair, I wonder if they're going to do although they've kind of already done it with Michonne, which is have them go off halfway through and have the spin-off be about what happens when they're not there, but I can't see that happening. But it does also seem like a big cop-out to be like, oh, these characters will definitely live till the end, so don't worry. But we all know that Norman Reedus is unkillable.
Yeah,
so,
they've talked about the plot protection that he's had since the start, since he was on screen.
Yeah.
So, like one of the things that, to kind of talk about a little bit here is, the negotiations that went on a couple of years ago were specifically to keep Norman Reedus and Melissa McBride on board, and they got bump in salary and they got signed into bigger contracts. And it would feel like this is also, able to manage the fact that they are in longer contracts than most of the rest of the cast, and had a big deal and arrangement made with AMC. So yes, Walking Dead is ending, but we're keeping your 2 contracts going almost. There's a little bit of that in mind as well.
I think so. Yeah.
I think AMC does a lot of things with budget conscious reasons, and I think the reason why you extend a show's final season over 2 years, which, come on, that's 2 seasons, but no, it's only 1, because then they don't have to, maybe some of the actors' contracts ended in season 11 and they would have to renegotiate. I don't know if that's how that really works, but I would suspect maybe it does. And I also feel like maybe, this whole Daryl and Carol spinoff is a way to keep The Walking Dead going, but then they can just fire all the other actors whose salaries have been raising this whole time, bring in a bunch of fresh people who have, ground floor salaries, and save a bunch of money.
Potentially, or it is just Daryl and Carol going after the zombie extras, which zombie extras cost a lot less to pay than actual actors with lines.
And what it means story-wise, I mean, who knows? Like, I predict that to have a satisfying ending for The Walking Dead, my prediction is that they will be in a place where they feel very safe and they have everything buttoned down and civilization is humming, and Carol and Daryl, because they're kind of wild, and Carol, she's already left a few times. She just gets uncomfortable being in one place for too long, that they go off into the wild and be free and live in anarchy. That's what I think. But
they've set this up, haven't they? They've said like we could go off into the sunset together.
Yeah.
So they've kind of signposted it. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like they've been seeding that for a few years now. That it feels like you're hearing often enough on the show, you're hearing those kind of words of, yeah, this group isn't for me. Yeah, I'm not, I can go off on my own. I can have my own place. And both of them have gone off separately in the show as well, but come back to each other in multiple times. So it does feel like, I don't know, I don't want to give comic spoilers, I suppose, but it does feel like everybody else in the group could probably settle into a more normal life, and the two of them could go off and have their adventures and not see the rest of them, basically.
Yeah, I suspect.
Yeah.
I mean, the other option is everyone else dies, which I don't. I don't think they'll do that. Who knows? But
this is an argument for Rick coming back, because I can't imagine Daryl leaving the kids unless they were in really good hands.
That's another. Or who knows? Maybe Judith could be in this spinoff.
That would be fun. Little Ass Kicker, the spinoff.
Yeah.
It could be them bringing Judith to Rick. That's the adventure that they've got to go on in the first season, maybe.
Oh, that would be cute.
Whatever they do, it would be really super cool if they could find a way to make it different. I was thinking about successful spinoffs, and by the way, the Happy Days higher ups wanted Fonzie to get his own spinoff, but Henry Winkler objected. But
he did. It was called Arrested Development. He played a lawyer. It was excellent.
It was awesome. But they had Laverne and Shirley, which was great, and Mork and Mindy, and Joni Loves Chachi. So 2 out of 3 aren't bad. And we've had Frasier from Cheers. We've had the Jeffersons. A lot of these are sitcoms, but Torchwood from Doctor Who, Star Trek, Next Generation, and other Star Trek shows. The Colbert Report is one from The Daily Show. Happy Days itself.
Fear the Walking Dead.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about good ones. Happy Days itself was kind of a spinoff from this anthology series called Love American Style.
Wow.
Huh. I didn't know.
But anyway, all of those shows, even Star Trek, I would say, are pretty different from their parent shows. And I think that really helped a lot. There's some things that are similar. Like Frasier, I thought was a much different show than Cheers. And so I don't know if a Carol and Daryl zombie spinoff could be that much different from The Walking Dead. Like it seems like they would need some kind of a goal or a purpose other than just survival, right? Or they'd have to come in contact with some interesting situation or something like that. I don't know.
Maybe they could do Thelma and Louise. And it just ends with the two of them biking off the cliff into the distance.
But on the show itself, we'll have to pick up with them, right? So what could make it really different? I do think you've got a good point there. One of the things that has always been challenging for The Walking Dead is it's filmed in the area it's filmed in, and they kind of go up and down the same road, and it's just redressed over and over again. So does this give an opportunity to bring the motorbike into its full form on the show and have Reedus and McBride traveling across America and seeing the wasteland it's become?
Yeah.
If you cut down a budget for the actors, maybe you get to expand the budget for the sets and the places that they're going to visit. Maybe that's a way to do it.
That'd be cool.
It's a road trip zombie movie, zombie TV.
Almost like a travelogue.
Ride with Reedus in the apocalypse.
Like Ride with Reedus with zombies, like actual zombies.
Reedus with zombies.
I love that. I'm just seeing the original promotional posters, but some interns had to put on little labels just saying with zombies on it.
Exactly.
Right.
In 2021, it's finally okay to talk about our mental health and happiness. Humans aren't meant to keep everything inside. It makes us sick, and therapy helps. But what is therapy exactly? Well, it's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships or at work, not dealing with stress well. Whatever you need, it's time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles, because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, or even live chat sessions with your therapist. So you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. And it's much more affordable than in-person therapy. And you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. Join the millions of people who are seeing what therapy is really about. It may or may not be for you, but it's worth looking into, because you are your greatest asset. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/Stitcher. That's betterhelp.com/Stitcher.
A couple more things I'd like to see in the anthology one. Shane and Lori before Rick gets back, like them. A day in the life of Carl on the farm, not being home like he's supposed to be. They'd probably have to recast that one. Something in a lab or a government kind of, people actually trying to deal with the situation. And maybe some pre-apocalyptic stuff would be cool. See some of the characters we know pre-apocalyptic.
I'd love to see a bit of what Maggie's been up to, but I imagine that might be folded into the coming season.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to see that too. That's a great point. Yeah.
It'd be great to get some Glenn back.
I know. I feel like that would happen. Stephen Yeun's over it, but
he's done.
And it feels like, the revelation of who the character was before the apocalypse of being a pizza delivery guy and then him falling into the show. It feels like there's not much story to tell before the apocalypse.
Did they say he was a car thief or was that in the comics?
It was hinted, I think, that he knew how to hotwire a car.
Yeah.
But they never you could go down the road of having Merle and Jesse Pinkman together because, we know that Jesse Pinkman was Merle's dealer. So that's something that could happen.
How did he get that bag of blue meth?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Anything else you guys want to say about any of this stuff?
I think I would say I'm cautiously optimistic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very intrigued by the concept. As I say, I think there's loads of opportunity to be really creative. But if they're going to just continue filming in the same locations with 2 members of the cast rather than 25 members of the cast, well, probably not long for this world for the Daryl and Carol show.
Yeah.
But in terms of the expanded Walking Dead universe, the idea that we don't have to think about it as Fear the Walking Dead 12 episode seasons, it makes it sound really interesting to me. So I'm really excited about that.
Maybe it'll be like a variety show. The Daryl and Carol hour.
That'd be fun.
Looking for zombies that look like famous people.
I can cast
the Day of the Dead.
That would be amazing. Have we covered when World Beyond starts, Jason? Is that starting same night as the finale airs?
Yes. So we're going to have to figure out, because I think it would make sense to do 2 separate Walking Dead cast episodes. We're going to have to figure that out.
Yeah.
But we'll be covering Walking Dead World Beyond weekly, and since that will be airing starting on the second week concurrently with Fear, we'll be doing our what do we call it? Quick takes or something. We'll have to come up with a clever title that indicates our attitude towards the show.
Sadomasochist indulgence.
Weekly masochism minute.
In not being happy. I mean, I don't know. As I say, we might have... Do you know, actually, I meant to say to you both, I'm just finishing season 3 of Killing Eve. And I remembered that it's the showrunner who's taken over on Fear. Is that right? Suzanne Heathcote?
What? No, it has the same showrunner.
No, isn't Suzanne Heathcote? She's coming in as like a writer or something. Is this not? Okay. Did I dream this? Did I do a dream?
If that's true, I didn't know it. But as far as I know, the showrunners are still Goldberg and
Suzanne.
Whatever.
Hang on, I'm getting a result on Google. This is coming in live. Oh, okay. So she is going to be executive story editor, which is interesting. So it's been interesting watching the show with that in mind, that she's going to be taking a bit of creative control. So I'm intrigued to see how that pays off in this coming season, but who knows?
Yeah, okay, so the plan is after 2 or 3 episodes, if Fear ends up being way better than World Beyond, then we'll switch that around and start covering Fear, and we'll just have a World Beyond masochism minute.
Love it.
Jason, you're funny.
Masochism minute.
If Fear gets good. Sorry, just laughing.
It's possible. I mean, that's the thing is,
could happen.
In our sort of, giving our opinions on how we think this whole thing is going to go with the spin-offs and the ending of the series, we're fairly optimistic, and I think it helps that Angela Kang has been doing great and that she's involved with the Daryl and Carol show. If this had come out halfway through season 8, then it probably would have been a much different story. But we also have Fear, which we're not liking, so it's like, well, I think there's, maybe they learned some lessons from that, and there's a really good chance that the Daryl and Carol show and the anthology could be really good, but the way Fear is right now does not help.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
By the way, I absolutely hope it's called the Daryl and Carol show. I think that would be awesome. That's it. Walking Dead
I want to,
presents the Daryl and Carol show.
Rar. They put a rar in after.
Like a jazzy 80s 90s style theme tune for it with like a cool like sax solo and, you know, stocking filter pictures of the two of them getting up to like, oh, jokey fun. Yeah, I would be totally into that. I'd love it.
All right. Let's take a little break, but there's more to come. We got so much feedback from you guys, so stay with us.
This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my only friend. The end of our elaborate plans. The end of everything that stands. The end. No safety or surprise. The end. I'll never look into your eyes again.
All right, we're back. It's time for listener moans, groans, grunts. Okay, so like I mentioned, we got a lot of responses from you guys. We're going to read a lot of them, but we can't read them all. So I just want to thank everyone for commenting anyway. Love you guys. So let's get started. Derek, would you like to go first?
Sure. Megan Dibley Lyman says, I'm so glad it's ending during a golden period for the show instead of ending during the slump years, like so many people called for.
Yeah, that is such a good point.
Yep.
Agree. Jamie Dimmick says, I'm sad it's ending. I know the time is right, but that show has been such a huge part of my life.
Yeah.
Also agree, Jamie.
Daphne Backman says, I have so many mixed emotions. The show's been such a part of my life for 10 years, and it's going to be sad when it signs off for good. Angela Kang has been incredible and has continued to rejuvenate the show back into something special again. With her at the helm, I think sticking the landing is possible, so I'm hopeful. Given how 2020 has been, I guess I've started expecting anything at this point. I definitely hope Andrew Lincoln comes back for the end.
Absolutely. Good friend Steve Bren says, I'm glad when a show knows when it's going to end. I think it gives the writers and creators a chance to end it right. I would love to see Andrew Lincoln come back. They will still need to satisfactorily show us why he did not come back earlier, though. Also, Denai's story really needs to be finished.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree with more.
I know. He's been gone for so long, and I can't imagine what the reason would be for that, aside from him being at a resort.
It'd be quite funny if he came back and like we were all excited and everyone there is just over it. They're like, oh, hi, Rick.
Like,
decided to come back, did you?
Yeah. And he's like, what?
What? He just turns up inexplicably covered in blood, like, what? And they're like... Wendy Ott Eppers says, it's time. I don't know that there will be a good replacement, but I feel it's the right decision.
Yeah, I was thinking about how, Lost ended in, I think, spring of 2010, and Walking Dead started that fall on Halloween. And Lost for me was that water cooler show where, everybody got obsessed with it. And then Walking Dead in some ways felt like the spiritual successor to it. But since then, TV's changed so much. There's like probably about 1,000% more shows, if not even more than that right now. Oh my
goodness, yeah.
And we're all streaming, so we're not watching at the same time. And it's hard for one show to catch on to the degree I feel like that either of these shows did. So I don't know if we're going to have a show like this, exactly like this again.
Absolutely. And with so few of them being weekly as well. Like how do you have a conversation when there's 10 episodes of the show released in one day,
Right. My turn. Laura Willie Swink says, I think it's good timing. Even though the show's getting so good right now, it would be nice if Angela could bring this baby in for a nice solid landing at the end on a high note. Plus, I'm definitely in for a Daryl Carol spinoff. But does that mean no Connie in Daryl's future? No way. They can't let Daryl have a happy ending now that he has a spinoff.
Yeah.
Not a chance. And isn't Connie going off into the Marvel universe as well?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, she's an Eternal.
Yeah.
She's going to ascend to being an eternal. I like it. Kendra Hendrick says, I love the anthology series idea. I have no clue what to expect from the Daryl and Carol spin-off, though. Kind of seems like it would be the same show at that point. I'm glad we still have 30 episodes or so to go, but I'm sad to see the series end, especially right now when it's been so much better the past few seasons. I'm happy we will still have the other shows and hopefully the movies in the same universe. I feel like they could have waited a bit to announce this stuff, though. Another dagger for 2020.
You're not wrong. Justin Turner says, saddened to hear that one of my favourite shows ever will be ending because I've been there since the beginning and still love it. It does seem it's about time, though, to wrap it up, and I hope they're able to do everyone's characters justice and tie up the loose ends. Really hoping they're able to bring Rick back for the finale so that the show and everyone, Judith, can end up with the main character from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. That thing about announcing in 2020, I actually think if anyone has any bad news or like breakups they need to do, just do it now. Just get it all out right now. Yeah.
The purge.
But yeah, Beth Nichols Morrison says it's never easy when a favorite show ends, but it's probably good that they've decided on an end date so they can wrap the story up properly. Definitely hope they bring back Rick and Michonne to at least lead into the films.
Mm-hmm. Kara Hinson says, has there been a time before this show? If done right and at the level of quality these last two seasons, I'm curious to see how they wrap up the main show and our surviving group. I like Carol and Daryl's friendship, especially when Daryl is allowed to talk on the show and his character's most compelling moments have been in dialogue with just Carol.
Yeah.
Rick, or even making Beth tolerable. But I'm not sure I could commit to 18 episodes. I would love to see what they could do with a limited series. Fear has me doubtful they could craft an interesting journey for them and grow their characters. An anthology of backstories would be interesting. Someone please give us a glimpse of the beginning of the apocalypse that Fear teased us in season 1. And where's Heath?
Yeah.
Right. Last, I'm really hoping they backtrack on the idea of theatre releases for Rick movies. I'm convinced this will not be good. Give me a well-done movie or miniseries that I could stream on AMC before I go Rick Who. If they can wrap up the main show and focus on quality over quantity of TWD content, I'm game to see where this world goes next.
I agree, Kier.
Yeah, Heath, I thought there were rumors that he might be in the movies, but I would bet that if he's not, then he'll be in this anthology series.
I hope so.
Yeah, it just feels like if you have those kind of loose ends, tie them up. That's what the anthology series
is a place to do it. Making Beth tolerable. That reminds me in that episode with Beth and Daryl where she said, "I just know you're going to be the last man standing." And ever since she said that, I'm like, I bet you they're working towards that if they can possibly do it. You know, I mean, I still don't think everybody else is going to die, but Daryl will be the one that continues on. And then as far as Fear having you doubtful, I feel like if they just have the right writers and the right people heading it up, that it has a pretty good chance to be good, this anthology thing.
When Fear has been good recently, rare, has been one-off episodes like the one with Althea and her girlfriend. So, you know, anthology episodes might be a good way to go, basically.
Right. And if we go back through our podcast, you and I had plenty of things that we liked about it, moments and things like that. There was just so much that we were just like hand over face. No.
This sounds like us dissecting a relationship where like it was good at times, but you know, it just got real bad towards the end. It's true though. Lindsay Schlicht says, it's kind of a relief to know we won't be losing Carol and Daryl, but it also feels like a huge spoiler. It makes me sad for the rest of the cast. I guess we'll be losing, but I'm always down for something new. I'm curious how we do a spin-off with only these two and not just have them end up with another new group somewhere. Fair point.
Yeah, and they'll just be a group filled with low-paid actors.
There you go.
No, who knows? We'll see. Jonathan Bookalil says, I hope they have all their actor contracts in order so they can tell a true story rather than one based on whether actors leave for another project. All in on the Daryl and Carol show. Carol has always been a favorite. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Tammy Barr says, I've loved this show for forever, but it needs an ending. Honestly, I'm disappointed in a Daryl and Carol spin-off. I think it does give away some plot lines in the upcoming season, and it also fails to just end it. More importantly, So we want to see these actors in new and different roles. Would love to see their careers go in new directions. Does this mean the podcast will live on?
I don't know.
I don't know. See if we're still friends in 2 years' time.
It's 2 years.
A lot can happen.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking I need to get a real job for a while now, and but I love podcasting. So hopefully it will still keep going. But if it does end, that would be a place to end. It would be at the end of The Walking Dead proper.
Yeah. Yeah, don't do it halfway through the season.
Oh, totally.
We'll definitely finish out the show. Yeah.
It makes me laugh a bit because I'm in a lot of career uncertainty for myself at the moment, and we read this news and my partner was just like, oh well, there's one job that's going to have a bit of stability for the next 2 years, and I was like, yeah. Podcasting will be a constant, I guess. So yeah, interesting times. Beth Nicholas Morrison says on that topic, I hope so. Lucy and Jason are so epic together. Oh, thanks, Beth. Your check's in the post.
It's true too. Totally true.
Scott Carl Witham says, I had a feeling it was coming and thought I was okay with it. Then the announcement happened and my heart absolutely sank. This show has been a massive part of my life, and Rick Grimes is one of my favorite characters of all time.
Absolutely. Kristen Crabtree says, glad they have an end date, but a Carol and Daryl spin-off. It doesn't seem like it's ending. I like the idea of anthology, but all my favorites are dead. So it'll be a look back at those characters. That'd be cool.
Seems to be a possibility for sure.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah.
Monica McGuire says, it's sad to me. Oh.
Simple. Michael Koska says, it's bittersweet. What an amazing ride, and still so much content before it concludes. The Daryl Carroll spinoff series with Gimple/Kang at the helm keeps me more excited than sad.
Carl Jackson says they need to have a giant crossover with all the spin-offs to fight Thanos.
Thanos wouldn't stand a chance against Carol. The man was living in a space garden. So many flowers to look at. Michael Darwin says, I have enjoyed where the show has gone the last season and a half. It struggled mightily in the Negan years, but I still love the characters, and it always gave us something to talk about in the Teacher's Lounge on Monday. Once the comic ended, I figured this would come soon. We got 12 seasons of gruesome zombie stories on basic cable, plus spin-offs and numerous imitators. Who would have imagined that when the show began?
Yeah. Gemma Hall says, when I first found out, my initial reaction was to cry and then to scream, why, God, why? But then I thought about it, and I don't want the show to shamble on, no pun intended. Oh, come on, you intended that pun. For years. When Buffy ended, I was heartbroken, but the final season and episode were fantastic, and I think Angela Kang will make sure The Walking Dead ends on a high note and goes out with a bang. I will, of course, be sad when it's over, as it's been such a huge part of my life for 10 years, as well as listening to the podcasts, going to cons, and generally loving being in a united fandom. I've had all my kids since I started watching the show, and life has changed a lot. I just can't imagine not having the show to watch on Monday nights and all the excitement, fear, heartache, and love that comes with being a true fan. My one wish is to see Rick again, my hero. Heart.
Oh, Gemma.
Oh, Gemma, that's lovely. That's got to be a little
so
teary.
Nice. I know.
Yeah, because as we say, the community is also part of this show and this podcast particularly. So yeah, thanks so much, Gemma. Alan Cleland says a definitive end to the show would be preferable. Yeah, it's had its wobbles in terms of quality, but I tend to see it right through to the end. Ah, look at me. But I intend to see it right through to the end. I had a bit of wobbles in terms of my quality there. But I don't think that oversaturating the market is the best way to go. I think Star Wars did the same thing, and that's why some of the spin-off projects from them maybe weren't as well received as they could have been.
That's a fair point. Rick Montalvan says, I'm okay with it. Initial reaction was sadness, but I'm just happy they're building towards a finale. What a damn good run. Wasn't always a home run, but will always remain memorable.
Yep.
Yay.
Josh Svyanovich says it will all really depend on if they can stick the landing. I have such a hard time revisiting shows I loved during their run but failed to deliver at the finish line. Looking at you, Game of Thrones. Kirkman's end to the comic was near perfect in my eyes. Given where we are with the characters remaining and knowing that Carol and Daryl have plot armor that will protect them well into a new show, I'm interested to see how they'll wrap everything up and if we will find the ending as satisfying. After almost 12 years, expectations will be high, but given Angela Kang, the source material, and the cast, hopes will be as well. I think I know what you mean. When a show doesn't stick the landing, it's harder to revisit, and when it does, it just leaves it as this beloved feeling. But I feel like some shows are like that more than others, and I think if Walking Dead doesn't, it's just been such a long show for one thing, and it has different phases and all that, that I feel like it won't be as harmed if the ending isn't as great. I could be wrong, but that's just a feeling I have. I don't know.
I read a really interesting piece. I think I've spoken about this on the podcast before about public memory and how we deal with shows that don't because it's so funny to think that a year and a half ago we were all we could talk about was Game of Thrones, and everyone was au fait with which character is who says what. It was so iconic,
and it was
then
just
after the ending,
mind-blowingly good. Oh my god, no show can touch this show. Yeah,
and then as soon as it ended, and it was so divisive. We now just don't really talk about it. Do you know what I mean? It's it's at the trivia night.
A friend who went to jail and then died or something. It's
yeah. It's so strange because I don't it was still a damn good show, but we just don't really. It just seems to have disappeared a little bit. We're oh yeah, that show, Direwolves, they were cool.
House of the Dragon, I think, is set for. I think they said 2023, or so it's going to be a while, but. It'll be interesting once that comes back to see if they can get that fan fervor going again.
Absolutely. It does feel like the discussion just disappeared overnight. And I had loads of friends talking about it, and then everybody was like, "Shut up! Why did you like the end of that show?" And that was it.
Yeah, it's funny. It just depends. Even my friends who really liked the ending and people who didn't, we just don't. It's just not a point of reference anymore, and it's weird because other fandoms have survived, but that one really just.
I feel like it's
overnight.
just a bit of a break.
Yeah.
We'll see. But yeah, you're right.
So intense. That's probably why. Steve Barr says, seems like a smart move overall. Presumably the new show Bike and Bake will have fellow cast members show up occasionally. I love it, Steve. That's much better than Daryl and Carol. Bike and Bake show. Steve continues, Tales of the Walking Dead will let them do what they couldn't before, have many different settings and kill off characters more often. My main worry is the budget for both series. What do you think? What about the idea of Daryl and Carol going off into a spin-off show, and it opens up with Carol going, "Look at the flowers, Daryl." What do you think?
Iconic.
and he's only in one episode.
There you go, yeah.
Dead within the first 30 seconds, and then it's just Carol giving us baking tips. I'd be up for that. John Ben says, I was never really a fan of the spin-offs, I have to say, but as things get stale in the major universe, it's always good to see other times, other people, other places. I'm still holding out for a Euro/UK version. I mean, half the actors are British anyway, so might as well have a go at it. Also, where are the extreme preppers? Did anyone legit hunker down for 2 years and are now just coming out of their bunkers to find the world in chaos? Sorry, are you talking about the show or real life, John? There's a lot more to tell in this world, and the one big question being, how did this happen in the first place? I would say I'm optimistic.
Would you guys be okay if they never reveal that, or would you prefer it?
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I'm perfectly happy with it. I think I love the kind of mystery to it, and it wasn't. I suppose the mystery stopped after season 2 or season 1. It was like, that's it. The apocalypse has happened. They're years in now, so unless they're struggling to find a cure at this stage, I don't see a reason to reveal what caused it, I suppose.
Yeah, totally. Jennifer McGinley says, I've been immersed in Walking Dead since the very beginning, but it's time to go faux show, especially seeing as it's been Sans, Rick, and Carol for a while now. Carl. Rick and Carl for a while now. Initial thought on a Daryl and Carol show was, oh, come on, how many Splinter shows can a Walking Dead enthusiast take? Immediately followed by Daryl, yay, which was a very much dictated by the lady boner that just won't quit that I've had for the younger Dixon brothers since he had short blonde hair and spoke like Zed out Police Academy. Yes, folks, I am that shallow.
Jennifer, you're amazing.
I love it. I have a really good friend of mine that I met through going to various conventions like the Walking Dead conventions and stuff, who absolutely hates Daryl. He despises him. And the minute this news came out, I saw him go on Twitter going, "Oh my God, this guy is definitely going to survive. How could they ruin The Walking Dead like this?" So there are other people with differing opinions who are also fans of Walking Dead as well. But I get it. I get why Daryl would have to be in the spin-off. Robert Parker says, "I don't think it changes things much, does it? As more and more cast members leave, it has been turning into the Daryl and Carol show anyway. Personally, if I were going to start a spin-off, it would be based on Judith."
But then she'd be wandering around alone.
That's true.
Just left all alone.
Gracie Lou is here. Hey, Gracie. How are you? Gracie Lou says, "If any show didn't need another spin-off, I'm thinking it's The Walking Dead. Daryl, bleh."
There you go.
There you go.
Ernest Reich says, "An anthology series is pretty exciting. Creative freedom, different writers and actors, same great zombies, so much potential."
Absolutely. Michael Walling replies to that saying, "World War Z storytelling style is a good direction for the franchise. The Walking Dead franchise could do more justice to that type of storytelling than any movie could have done."
I want them to do an episode where they just follow one walker around and see what his day is like.
That would be cool.
While I like it, that kind of feels like the web spin-offs they used to do during the summertime.
Yeah, they got to do it
where you could
do it well somehow.
You could cut it into kind of 3-minute segments over the course of 3 or 4 months, and then something happens at the end, like an axe to the head or something for the poor zombie.
Brian White says, "If the new stuff is good, I'm good."
That's a simple way to. That's kind of how I feel, actually.
Yeah.
If it's good, then cool.
Good philosophy.
Karen Shee says, "I know that I'll cry buckets of tears during the series finale, but I'm actually relieved that the main show has an end date. Last year, AMC said that The Walking Dead could go on for another decade, which sounded disastrous to me. I feared that they'd churn out soulless episodes just for the sake of putting out content. I'm happy that the show isn't going out with the season 7 and 8 team, and hopeful that Angela Kang will stick the landing by prizing the story and characters. I'd be more excited for the Daryl and Carol spinoff if there weren't already 2 spinoff shows in the Walking Dead universe. I hope we're satisfied with how Daryl and Carol's arcs end on the main show, that they're not diluted because of the extra content following season 11. Well, one thing is The World Beyond is only 2 seasons, so I think that means it'll be over before Daryl and Carol starts. And we haven't really mentioned it, but don't you think they'll end Fear too? Doesn't it seem like a travesty if Fear outlasts The Walking Dead?
Dear God, that would be the fall of humanity.
But they haven't said anything, so I don't know.
Maybe they're just hoping we've forgotten it exists. I know I am.
If it does keep going, maybe they'll move some more characters over there.
That's amazing. Oh my God, can you imagine?
Karen goes on, "I'm bummed that the show will conclude when the fans can't gather at conventions or watch parties to celebrate its importance in pop culture history. Well, fans that aren't in the US can. This show is special on and off the screen because it has connected so many individuals. I hope there's still some way to send the series off with a bang, as deserved." Yeah, I agree. It's a bummer about the conventions. Maybe by the time the show ends, it's got 2 years, so maybe there'll be conventions up and running again.
Live Zoom call for the finale, Jason?
Absolutely. We'll have to do something.
Have to do something.
Yeah, if we are allowed to congregate at that point safely, then I'm sure a bunch of us will get together somewhere.
Yeah,
amazing.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
I might even fly.
That would be cool.
And leave Ireland. Anthony Ibersina says, "This show means a lot to me. I'm glad it's gotten better, but I don't want it to get worse. So I'm not super bummed. More like ready for the original era of The Walking Dead to be over. I'm excited to see if Tales of the Walking Dead will have stories like Clementine's story from the video games, or some of the other books that have come out in the Walking Dead universe. I think Angela Kang deserves a true fresh start as a showrunner, even if it is a spin-off. P.S. Jason and Lucy, you guys really make my day when I hear your podcast. Please have another roast for the Walking Dead episode. One can only dream." Thanks, Ashley.
Thank you. I love that. I just thought of something. I feel like the other reason I'm feeling quite happy is that 30 episodes seems like an adequate amount of time to deal with the next beat of the comics that they're reaching. And I think that like if we're ending where the comics end in terms of story beats, that's a good place to go. So it feels like they'll do justice to that storyline while also drawing the show to an end. So that was one of the reasons that I felt quite happy with it.
It's interesting. Like, it does feel like they have just enough time to wrap up the comic, and I'm like, oh, they don't have any confidence about going on after that, huh? But on the other hand, it's kind of neat that the shows and the comic would both kind of, relatively cover the same story. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, it makes total sense. Yep.
We have another email here. This came actually, I think, a couple of weeks ago, and I thought it was kind of interesting. It's not about all the stuff that we've been talking about now, but I thought it would be interesting anyway. Lucy, you want to read it?
Awesome. Yeah, I do, especially because apparently this comes from a fellow countryman of mine. So we have an email from Gary. Hi, Jason, Lucy, and other hosts. I hope that you're well in these crazy times. I am a fellow Scotsman from Glasgow, my former home. Nice to hear from you, Gary. I started The Walking Dead years and years ago, but only got to season 6. Life just got in the way. Anyway, last year I jumped back in from season 4 and have been following your podcast since then. I've raced all the way up to season 10, episode 13, What We Become, and as the episode started it showed Michonne and Andrea. I couldn't remember exactly what happened to Andrea, so I quickly stopped watching and decided to start from season 1 again, and I thought people might want to know some of the things I noticed. Firstly, there is nobody from season 1, episode 1 left on the show. Morgan is the first person to use the word walker, and the rest of the group, Garrel and T-Dog... Garrel? Who's Garrel? Daryl and T-Dog call them geeks.
I didn't remember that.
I didn't remember that at all. Morgan feels stupid about using a gun as it draws them out. This made me laugh when I thought about the amount of machine guns that the Saviors use. The cinematography has come a long way. Season 10 is amazing compared to season 1.
I love that. I think it's important sometimes to recognize the way the show has improved, because a lot of people just have this feeling that it started out amazing and has petered out since then. And I just don't think that's true. And sometimes that just happens when you get used to a show or you get bored with it or something, Yeah. But that's cool.
Totally. It was an absolute joy to see light-hearted Glenn again. Glenn was a great leader, planning going into the sewers in episode 2 and getting the guns in the tank episode 3. Maybe he should have led the group through the seasons and everything might not have went to shit like it did with Rick. Savage burn on the Grimes supremacy here. During the war with the Saviors, the audience was split, with Negan using zombie guts as a poisonous weapon, but when they first smother themselves in zombie guts in season 1, Rick states, "Don't get any in your eyes." This makes sense in regards to Father Gabriel getting blinded in one eye. And that's why you never put zombie guts in your eye. I hadn't forgotten about that. Walkers can climb fences and use bricks in season 1.
I do remember that. Yeah.
I remember the brick. Yeah.
They were running and climbing and jumping fences and stuff. And I'm like, no, they can't do that anymore.
Yep.
Great to see a timid Carol, just to remind us how far she's come. Amazing character arc. Watching a young Carl again versus a young Judith. I'm Team Judith. Totally prefer her. Daryl's first episode. Wow. Who would have thought that this character, who has never appeared in the comics, would become our leading man 10 years later? His name wasn't even in the opening credits in season 1. Season 2, episode 1, there is a deer, and oh my, how much better did the deer CGI look back then?
And some things get worse.
Yep. In season 9, Rick falls from a horse and is impaled with rebar. He then has hallucinations / lucid dreams of trying to find his family. In season 2, Daryl falls from a horse and is impaled with one of his bolt arrows. He then has hallucinations / lucid dreams of his brother Merle. A quote from Herschel Green that speaks so much during this pandemic. Mankind's been fighting plagues from the start. We got our behinds kicked for a while, then we bounced back. It's nature correcting herself, restoring some balance. You were the first podcast that I ever listened to. I am a filmmaker and you've inspired me to eventually start my own movie review podcast. Thanks for everything, Gary. Thanks, Gary.
That's cool to get a retrospective. It actually does kind of fit in with,
so cool.
Thinking about the end of the series and going back to the beginning a little bit.
I would tell us when you start your podcast, because I will listen to that, because this is the kind of deep dive that I'm totally here for. So good luck to you in that.
And speaking of deep dives, someone also suggested that once this is all over, that we do a series rewatch.
Ooh.
That might be fun. And, you know, we would do it with full spoilers so we can talk about how things turned out and stuff like that. That might be.
Yeah, take that, office ladies. See you. We'll do a rewatch.
Yeah, maybe we can get Irony Singleton to join us or something.
That would be amazing.
I was just looking at Gary's email there. Wasn't it fascinating? Because, you know, obviously, Jason, you started the podcast before the show aired. You were a comic fan, comic reader beforehand. Do you remember when we saw the photographs of cast coming out of the show? You know, do you remember how closely Carl was to the comic books and how excited? I know as a comic book fan, it was like, wow, they've cast the perfect kid in this role. He looks exactly like the character, you know.
And Glenn too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They had the perfect costume on him and everything, and it's amazing to think, you know, how much further we've come on from that point now. You know,
I remember that, and I remember thinking that Andrea seemed too old because she's like a teenager or in her early 20s or something in the comic, and that Rick looked nothing like Rick.
Yeah,
yeah.
It turns out Rick's pretty badass.
He like grew to look more like him.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. And then we have a call. Actually, Aaron looks a lot like Rick. Turned out right now. We have a catch up with our friends Seth, Logan, and Ethan. They were, I think,
love them.
They just finished up. Maybe it was season 6, I forget, but they decided to take a break from The Walking Dead and watch the first season of Fear the Walking Dead. So here's remember now, first season that's back with but it was still kind of uneven, and I think the kids were pretty bored with it, but let's find out.
Hi Jason and Dr. Lucy, I'm Seth and I'm 11.
We just watched the entire first season of Fear the Walking Dead. I'm Logan and I'm 10.
We this is the one where they escape the military base and Travis's ex-wife gets shot. I'm Ethan and I'm 13.
My favorite part of the entire season so far was Cobalt. I liked how they told us the napalm bombs. I like that part.
I wasn't a fan of how slow they eased into bam, zombies everywhere.
I didn't really like how they the story building was just, I don't know, slow and boring. I didn't like it.
The Walking Dead is definitely better than Fear the Walking Dead.
I think that the giant zombie horde was really cool, and I couldn't figure out how they did it, but then I remembered the stadium.
Like I kind of just said, I didn't like how slow the show was. It was boring to me.
Yep.
Yep. You boys will go, you're going to go far in life. You've got good instincts.
It's interesting because I was super critical of their decision to kind of skate past the whole beginning of the apocalypse and go right into typical, just felt like The Walking Dead zombies everywhere. And I think the kids are saying the opposite, that they felt like it took even too long for that. But I just think that they could have had more exciting stories about people just first discovering and just showing how society crumbled and all that. But I don't know, maybe if you're a kid, that's not so interesting.
Well, it feels like that's what The Walking Dead did. The original show was this guy was in a coma when everything happened, and then he came out and the world was already to shit. So why do that in a second show?
Yeah.
Like, why not tell the stories of those first couple of weeks of the apocalypse? Like, I'm complaining about, this 5 years on from when the show started, but I felt your pain on that podcast, Jason. I really did.
Yeah. That's one
so
of the
annoying.
points that still stands out to me. 9 days. Yep. You skipped 9 days.
What is wrong with you people?
9 days. Maybe that will be one of the anthology episodes.
Right.
9 days.
The
There you
9
go.
days.
It should be 9 of the anthology episodes.
Yeah. All right, that is our show, episode 404. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thank you, Derek, for coming on. What are you guys doing right now over at TV Podcast Industries?
We are doing 2 shows a week right now. The Boys season 2 has gotten to about its midway point on Amazon Prime. They did this awesome thing where they released 3 episodes in one day and they went weekly. So it's really teasing everybody. So it's been really exciting.
Such a great show.
Like for that.
I love that.
Great show. Really, really good. And then we're also covering the HBO show Lovecraft Country, which is fantastic. Nice. Such a different horror TV show set in the 50s and with loads of really interesting storylines for the characters. So,
can I come on, Derek? I'd love to talk about Lovecraft Country.
Oh, I'd love you to be on. We're going. We just did episode 5 this week. We've got just 4 more to go. So I'll have a look and see when we can get you on. That'd be cool.
That'd be awesome. I'm loving it.
How do people find that stuff?
Over at tvpodcastindustries.com. Just search for us on any good or evil podcast catcher, and you'll find us there.
That's really great. Those are 2 awesome shows to be covering. So that's really cool.
Yeah, very lucky.
The Boys is. For anybody who doesn't know, it's on Amazon. It's a superhero show, but it's very cynical and dark and super gory, but also super funny, and it's filled with great characters, and I just love that show. I haven't gotten up on season 2 yet, but I hear it's just as good or better than the first season.
It's definitely better than the first. Really good. Really good.
Nice.
I should not have cancelled my Amazon subscription because loads of cool stuff has come out in the few months since I've done that, and I'm like, that was dumb.
You have to juggle all these streaming services. You can't subscribe to all of them at the same time.
It's difficult.
If you want to call us, people listening, you can reach us at 650-485-DEAD. That's 650-485-3323.
You can email us at brains@podcastica.com.
You can find us on the web at facebook.com/deadcast.
Be sure to check out our other shows at podcastica.com. Reema's covering Umbrella Academy on Strange Indeed, and we're wrapping up Cobra Kai on House Podcastica. We'll cover season 3 when that comes out. It's been such a fun show to cover. And then The Mandalorian's coming out at the end of October, so we'll be jumping into that.
Oh, amazing.
Mm-hmm. Loving your Cobra Kai footage, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
Coverage, by the way. It's been really good.
Yeah, it's
really
super fun.
Just finished the show last night, so
nice.
I'm really looking forward to seeing it.
I have to watch those last 2 we're recording in a couple days here.
Excellent.
Next episode of this podcast, I have something completely different, interesting, maybe a bit controversial cooking up for that episode. I'm not sure if it'll pan out or not, but I think so. So I'm being vague because I'm not sure, but stay tuned for that. And then we'll have whatever we do. After that, we'll be back with our, as I mentioned, our coverage of Walking Dead Season 10, Episode 16, and then The Walking Dead World Beyond with our Fear the Walking Dead masochistic minutes to go along with that.
Love it.
Don't forget to go to patreon.com/Jason and Karen if you want to take part in that 10% off for an annual membership, or just, pledge and get to experience all these perks and everything and help support my podcasting. And also, most importantly, I'm only going to be bugging you guys with this for a little bit longer, but please, if you're in the U.S., if you're a U.S. citizen, don't forget to vote. This season, you can go to vote.org to find out if you're registered, or register yourself if you're not. You can find out about mail-in voting and everything there. So vote.org. Thank you, people. All right, that is our show.
Thanks for listening.
Don't get bit, Anthony Ibersina.